Hello, people trickling into the webinar room. I always use that phrase trickling in and I feel a bit weird about it, but there we go. Maybe that'll be my first question. How do you feel about the phrase trickling in? Hi, everyone. It's Libby from Pro-Writing Aid here. As you can tell, we're nearing the end of Crime Writers Week and it's been a busy few days. Welcome, everybody popping in. Hi, Sana. Oh, I was about to go, how do I pronounce your name? You put it in your name. What great foresight there. Hi, everyone. Let me know where you're calling in from and yeah, who you are, where you're calling in from. Edwin from Richmond in California, St. Louis, Texas, Florida, getting lots of Americans, Michigan, Chicago, Heather from just outside Chicago, Rhode Island, Switzerland, there we go. Australia, gosh, so what's that now? 4 a.m. for you in Australia? I know you have different time zones, so it might be slightly different, but thank you. That is dedication. Thank you so much. 3 a.m. God. Thank you so much for your dedication to this week and to learning. That's brilliant. Jackie from Scotland. Lovely. Thank you so much, everyone, for letting me know where you're coming in from. It is great to see all of you. I'm just going to drop some links in the chat. I will drop them throughout as well, so you've got access to all the goodies in there. And yeah, I'm going to get started with a little bit of housekeeping, as you know. So first off, replays. If you have missed any of the sessions so far, and there have been some truly brilliant ones, I would recommend catching up if you have missed any. Replays will be available. All replays for the whole event should be all there by tomorrow morning UK time as we get them processed. Even event hosts need sleep. So the replays will be available until May the 5th for free, and then after that to Pro-Writing Aid Academy members only. So as many of you will know by now, you can get 40% off Pro-Writing Aid Premium as Crime Week attendees. If you'd like to see Pro-Writing Aid in action, then you can join me in about 2 hours time for my live demo of the software and to ask all your questions. And if you do join me for that, I haven't fully done a live demo before. I've done smaller ones, so you can send me a little good luck in the chat when you get there later on, and that will help me with my confidence there, but it's going to be great, don't worry. You can also get 50% off Pro-Writing Aid Academy, which includes premium as well as access to all recordings of previous events and lots else besides too. And you can find more info on all of your offers on the Crime Week Hub, which is the page that you use to join this session. Then there is also still time to join us over in the community to ask questions and chat with other attendees. There is a link in the chat now. Let me just pop that in again. And we'd love to see you there. And finally, I would just like to remind everyone to use the Q&A if you have any questions for Elena today. You'll be able to find that button in the center of your Zoom screen. If you'd like to chat with other participants, you can use the chat box throughout. So yes, as I said, I'm joined today by Elena Orison, who is an award-winning author and an editor, and she is going to be telling you all about how to hire an editor today, which I know we've seen lots of questions about kind of as we've gone through the session. So Elena, hi.
Hi, I am so excited to be here.
We're excited to have you.
So I guess a little bit about me really quick is I have been editing officially since 2015. I was editing before that here and there, just like for volunteer work, newsletters, like local newsletters, things like that. And well, my main story, my main story actually starts with my husband when he applied for a job transfer, or he was going to apply for a job transfer. He worked in North Dakota, where he had an opportunity to go to San Antonio, and I was so excited. I was so excited, like warmer weather, because I'm in North Idaho. Just so you know, North Idaho, it's cold in the winters. We have nice summers, but they're not very long. I don't think they're very long. So San Antonio, warm weather, perfect for me. My best friend lived in Houston. That was awesome. I was super excited, and there's lots of publishers in the area. I've always written. I think writing is in my blood. My mom is also an author. So when I started looking at career-wise, what can I do? Because as we know, sometimes writing doesn't make the most money. I thought I could edit, I could be an editor. And there's not a whole lot of publishers in our area. I think there's a couple of very small press publishers in my area, and that's it. And the newspapers were like, journalism experience, you have to have journalism experience. And I don't want to do that. So I felt stuck. But then the husband comes up with this idea of like, let's move to San Antonio. Perfect. He put his transfer paperwork in. I started researching jobs, and then I hit a wall. All the jobs at the publishing companies wanted me to have a college degree or be attending college. So I didn't have my degree yet. I had attended college, but it was when I was young and didn't really know what I was doing. So I went back to school. I went to online school to get my English degree, figuring that we were going to, figuring we were going to move. So I was online. And I was about 3 weeks into my first term when my husband said the transfer fell through. I don't know if he knows why. I don't really remember why. It was something about paperwork didn't work. I don't know. But anyway, I was already in school. So I just kept going, and I graduated with honors, and this was 2017. So it's recent. So this is something I really want to point out. Like, I am a recent graduate of college, and I am recently into my, I have grandkids, I have adult children. So I am, I'm later in my life stage, I guess, but that's something I really want to point out, is that you can do it at any time. Anyway, the month I graduated, one of my friends posted on Facebook about an online platform that wanted writers, and they would help train me as an editor. So I was like, okay, that's great. Let's get some formal training under my belt. Thank you. Sorry, I'm looking at the chat. Thank you for that. So I applied for this job. It's a volunteer position, I guess, because it's not paid, but it was a job. We treated it like a job. There's deadlines, there's requirements. I wrote for them for a year, and then I applied to be an editor because I wanted to fully understand the platform, how they worked, their requirements. So then I edited for them for 3 years. And during that time, I started editing for self-published authors. And it started really slow, but now I'm busy all the time, like all the time. My poor husband's like, where are you? I'm like, I'm working. So part of what I love to do is empower and teach other authors. And one of my very, very first clients now only hires me for proofreading because he's learned enough, and he also uses Pro Writing Aid. So I taught him, I said, here's this program, you should check this out. But I taught him enough that he now edits himself and just has me proofread. So in that, I kind of like worked myself out of a job, but I also am really happy about that because I like watching people learn and grow. So I'm here to help you learn how to hire an editor. I know it's one of those questions that pop up a lot in writing groups that just say, okay, everyone says I need to hire one, but how do I do that? Like, how does that even happen? So let's get started. We're going to go through some myths really quick. I just want to get some of these out of the way because I hear these all the time, and I just want to make sure that we're not having these in our head when I'm talking. So myth number 1, the cleaner your copy is, the less an editor will charge. Okay. The truth is that most editors will charge by the word or page, regardless of how clean the copy is. Some will charge by the hour, and I personally don't recommend hiring someone for an hourly rate because it could take them longer or short, it just depends. Like, that's such a vague amount to do. So I would say word or project. Look for that when you're looking for an editor. I normally charge per word. Sometimes I'll charge an overall fee depending on the project, or if I've edited for the author before and I know their work. I do have some repeat offenders in my client list. So that's something to keep in mind when you're looking for an editor too. Sometimes what an author thinks is copy ready or copy edit ready, and what I think is copy edit ready are different things. So if an editor charges by the word or project, It won't matter how clean your copy is, but it could help determine what type of editing you do need. So it is good to have it like as best as you can get it, but it's not going to change the price much. Myth number 2, don't lynch me for this, you guys. This app or program is just as good as an editor. Okay, I know we're all here because we love Pro Writing Aid. I use it too. I've used it for a very long time. So don't be, oh, I use Pro Writing Aid, I don't need it. But the truth is, sometimes the programs don't understand the meaning, the author voice, the style. Sometimes the suggestions are wrong. Like I'm sure we've seen, you know, we've all gotten a suggestion where we're like, what is this? Like, this does not even make any sense. You know, so as good as a program is, it's still just a program. Myth number 3, an editor will change your voice. This is a huge one. This is one I hear a lot from people. They're worried that giving their manuscript to someone they're gonna rewrite it and change how it is. So how many of you, tell me in the chat, how many of you have heard this myth or worried about it? I'm really curious. Yeah, a couple yeses, lots. Okay. Oh, and never. Oh, good. I'm glad to see that. So the truth is, a good editor will actually work to preserve your voice. Okay, as an author, it's really important for you to know the difference between your voice and passages that you just really love, but they might not actually do anything for your manuscript. A good editor will find those darling yet useless passages and remove them or change them, but still preserve your voice. And a really good editor will enhance your voice. Myth number 4. This was another big one too that I hear a lot. Your book will be error-free after hiring a professional editor. We're good, okay? I'm gonna tell you the story really quick. I worked on a mini series last year for an author, and she had the exact same introduction in each book. It was a 5-book series, the same introduction in each book because it went along with this other thing she was doing. I edited the first book, including the introduction, went through book 2, did the introduction again and sent it back. I said, I'm sorry, but I found some more things that I want to fix. And then book number 3 comes along. I changed it again. I was finding things that I had missed or finding things that I wanted to improve for her that weren't quite there yet. And she was getting a little frustrated, not too bad, but she was just saying, look, I'm trying to get these published ready while you're working on the next one. So could you stop? Like, could you please give me a break? So I was like, okay, I'm just not even going to look at it anymore. That way I'm not tempted. But I personally think that her books came out really well. So myth number 4, your book will be error-free. The truth is, an editor will catch up to 95% of the errors. There was actually a study done that figured out that if an editor can get 95% of the errors, they're a good one. And since editors are human, there can be typos. We can still miss things. We're just people. Okay, myth number 5, an editor might steal your work. This is another one I hear a lot. I hear, especially with new writers, they're very concerned that they're going to put their work out in somebody else's hands and that person is going to take it. The truth about this is it's incredibly rare. Most editors are not going to steal your work. If you've done your homework, which I'm going to show you what that is before contacting the editor, they were not going to do anything more besides look at the sample you sent and give you a recommendation of what they can do for you, or say no thank you and pass you on, like you have to find somebody else. A lot of editors are also writers like me. And so we understand it's scary to be like, here's my book, baby, please fix it for me. And then honestly, I'm too busy to worry about stealing somebody else's work. I'm just busy, you guys. So that's not going to happen for me. Okay. How do you know if you need an editor? Your payment will be, myth number 6, your payment will be Zelled to you. Well, yeah, we can talk about payments too if you need to. Okay, so how do you know if you need a good editor? The thought in the editing world is that there's usually 3 groups of people. Group A knows they need help. Okay, spelling and grammar are not their main strengths. They aren't using any editing software for whatever reason, and they might be shy about sharing their own work because they know it needs help. Like they're just not quite there. Okay, maybe their skills aren't there, whatever it is. Group B doesn't want help. They got A's in high school English. They read a lot. They are convinced they are the best editor for their work. They always notice typos in their kids' school newsletter, and their mother said their manuscript is perfect. Group C isn't sure. They've done the best they can, but wonder if it's good enough, or they want it to be perfect, as close to perfect as they can get it, and they want that help. Okay. All 3 groups include people whose budget might not allow for an editor. Like, we're kind of expensive. You're group A. Oh, that's okay. So who are you? Let's see who you are. Are you group A, B, or C? Before I go on, let's find out. Some group A's. Ooh, some C's. They see a B in there. I think I saw some B's. Good. B, A. Oh, lots of A. We have lots of A's. Okay, that's why we're here for Pro Writing Aid, right? P's wouldn't attend this presentation. They might stick around for me. I hope somebody does. Okay. So I think personally Pro Writing Aid falls in the middle. The users of Pro Writing Aid. This is what I feel like. I feel like we're kind of a mix. Some of us won't need an editor. Some of us might just need a proofreader at the end. Some of us think we don't, but we actually do. So we're kind of a mixture, right? As you can see from the chat. There's a lot of A's in here though. So it's interesting to me. So if you're on the fence, if you're not sure if you need an editor, if you're not an A and you're in group B and C, you do the editor test, okay? So I'm going to tell you 3 different ways that you can kind of test your work to see if you need an editor. Method number 1 is open Pro Writing Aid, or similar in your Word document. There's the editor in Word or whatever spell check you're using. Open that up. Read some of the suggestions that Pro Writing Aid says is wrong and how it wants to fix it. That's the really important part, how it wants to fix it. So not just this is wrong, but how is it suggesting a fix? If you understand the issues and you understand the fix, or you can fix it yourself, then your self-editing skills might be strong enough that you don't need an editor. If you're looking at it and you're going, I don't know what that means. Why is that wrong? It looks fine to me. Then you might want to consider hiring an editor. I know for Microsoft Word, if you're just using Word, which I hope nobody is just using Word, but if you are, I know a lot of their suggestions will fall into like this gray area of style and punctuation and grammar that's kind of like confusing, and it'll tell you, put a comma here, and then you'll run it again. It'll say, take out that comma, and you're like, what is this, right? But if like an editor will know how to handle that. They'll know if there's a comma goes there or not. They also know there's more than one right answer, and they'll know which one answer is right for your book. We also know when to enforce those strict writing rules and when we can kind of go, we're just going to fudge it a little bit. So if you know those rules, if you know that, how to fudge them and still make it right, then you might not need an editor. Method number 2 is get an editor's evaluation. So you can get a manuscript evaluation by an editor or even several, and that can help you determine if you need to get their help and what type of editing to pay for. This usually does cost money, so I don't always recommend it unless you're trying to decide what type of editing to pay for. So that's that's not my favorite way. Okay. Method number 3, get a sample edit. Here's a pro tip: send a chapter in the middle. Don't send the first chapter. The first chapter is usually the most polished. So if an editor says, hey, send me your first chapter and I'll give you a sample edit, be like, can I send you chapter 6? Pick one in the middle. You might have to pay a small fee for this, $25, $20, whatever. But usually if you end up hiring that editor that that fee will apply to your overall cost. That's how I do it anyway. And I know several other editors do the same thing. When you get that sample edit back from that editor, you can determine if you can DIY it or if you need their help. So, and sometimes, honestly, let's be just frank here. Even if you are fully capable of editing yourself, you have the tools, you know what you're doing, you know, you understand everything that you need to have to make your book beautiful, you still might want to hire an editor because your life is busy and your time is valuable. You know, it might be worth your time to pay someone else to edit your manuscript so you can work on something else like book 2 or book 3. I'm hiring an editor for my book, just so everyone's aware. Like, that's a big question I get a lot. Like, oh, you're an editor, so you don't need an editor. Well, no, I do. I need an editor, like, desperately. So I am for sure hiring someone for my own book. And just so you know, I am watching the chat sometimes. That's why I just love seeing everyone's comments, and I think it's great. And just thank everyone for being here. Okay. So what can an editor do for you? So you have your beta readers, I hope. You have your mom, your best friend, your dog, everyone read your book and they said it's great. And you just know that they were honest and told you what needed to be fixed, right? I mean, obviously. Good point, Stuart. We can talk about that too if you want to pop it in a question. He asked, he said he was advised not to use an English teacher for an editor. Okay, so what if your friend and your mom and your dog gave your book 5 stars? Congratulations, Calvin. But what if they were wrong? Okay. Or what if they didn't want to hurt your feelings? So they did not tell you that there's a scene. And this is, I know you guys are crime writers, so forgive me for this, but this actually happened. The adventure party in the locked van outside of the hospital, went into the hospital, and then all of a sudden they were shooting the zombies up in the hallways. So this actually really happened in a book I beta read for an acquaintance, and they left that part in because nobody else said anything. And their other readers were their family. So that was like this huge glaring plot hole, right? How did they get the weapons all of a sudden? But nobody wanted to say anything because they were a family, or maybe they didn't register that was a plot hole. So an editor has several jobs, and what they do depends on what you think you need. So listen to that again. I said what you think you need, not what you actually need. Most people think they only need line editing or proofreading, and a lot of times the book also needs developmental editing. So when I get a manuscript, when it crosses my desk and I go through it and I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, it really is struggling with some pacing and some character development over here, but they paid me for line editing, not for developmental editing. I will let them know. I will say, hey, this, you might want to consider looking at this again. Here's what I'm noticing. Do you want to go through it? Do you want to help me, or would you want me to help you with developmental editing? We can work up a contract for that, whatever it is. But it's up to you as the author to decide what you want the editor to do. So sometimes they'll say, yes, let me work through this. Sometimes these authors will say, no, just keep going with what you're doing. So it's entirely up to you. It's your book. So in a nutshell, an editor's job is to check facts. This is especially when working with nonfiction or historical fiction. I edited a historical fiction last year. It kind of has a historical crimey, it was the mob, Prohibition era. So it was really cool. But I was constantly searching for things like the proper spelling of this brand of whiskey or this name. For nonfiction books that I edited last year, it was dates and names, a lot of dates and names to make sure it was verified information. We also look at character development. Does the character arc move along with the plot? Are there any lamppost characters? My good friend's going to forgive me if I use her book, but I call a lamppost character a character that you can replace with a lamppost, and there is little to no effect on the story. My friend just had one, she just launched her book, but she changed that character, total 180 on this character, and it's amazing now. But so if that character can be a lamppost and there's no change, then that character needs to be removed or changed. We will check structure, pacing, content. Okay, make sure they're consistent with your book's genre, especially in regards to your target audience. Like that's really important. It's kind of silly to have this book out there and you have a target audience, but no one wants to read it because your pacing is off. Okay, you don't want to have a steamy romance with phrasing that you would use in a middle grade fiction, right? That doesn't work. We will check for plot holes. Are there any plot holes? What's the setting like? How does that work? For nonfiction, which I know we're crime writers, just forgive me here. This is my spiel. For nonfiction, does the writing hold the reader's attention? And that goes for fiction too. Does it hold the reader's attention? Does it flow properly? You know, are there any slow spots that we need to change or remove? How's the transitions? Editors will look for this. We also will do the normal grammar, punctuation, spelling, word choice, make sure it's T-H-E-I-R, not T-H-E-R-E, that kind of thing. That's probably the majority of what people hire me for, even if they need some of this other stuff. We will look at paragraph and sentence structure. Are they too long? Are they too short? Ooh, a nonfiction historical crime. That sounds good. Sorry, I got to look in the chat. All right. So paragraph and sentence structure. And then finally, we will make the author voice, this is what I talked about before, stronger, clearer, and maybe even more consistent. Okay, so this is everything that we can do for you. We can also do a lot more, but this is kind of like the basics of what an editor can do for you. When do you hire an editor? This is kind of a big one too, right? The answer, it depends. Sorry, you guys, it's true. It does depend. It depends on what type of edit you're looking for. I'm sure most of you know the different types of editing, but I'll run through them really quick, just super fast, just in case. Okay. There are usually three main types when we're talking kind of independent self-publishing. If you get into traditional publishing, there's more levels, but we're just going to focus on self-published authors. So we have developmental editing, or content editing, which is where we look at, it's a big picture. We focus on structure, plot, character development. We don't really look at grammar or spelling. It's just that big overall view, okay? Then we do line editing, which is a detailed view, sentence structure, flow, pacing, grammar, that kind of thing. Proofreading, microscopic view. So your focus is going to be on spelling, capitalization, typos, all those little things, those little small details that can just make or break a good manuscript. Some manuscript need all three types. Some need a combination. Sometimes the editor or the author just wants the editor to proofread, like my friend, my very first client. And the hard thing for that can be when I want to just touch some other things in this book. I'm like, but let me just fix this. Okay. Developmental editing can happen at any time. And any changes you make during this process will also need to be line edited and proofread. So I always recommend doing that, like after you've written your draft and you've gone over as much as you can on your own, and maybe you have a round of beta readers, then you do your developmental edit. Line editing, I recommend after you finish drafting, revising, after your beta readers, after your developmental edit, before it's formatted for publication. Because if you try and format it and then get it line edited, things are going to shift. There's been times that the word count has gone way down or way up, depending on what we did. So you want to make sure you're not in that formatting stage yet. And then proofreading should always be last. It can be before or after formatting, because normally it's just like one or two small changes. It doesn't really affect length or anything like that. Okay, we're getting into the nitty gritty. Y'all ready for this? Where do you hire an editor? I'm right here. Hi. No, I'm kidding. There's actually quite a few places you can find editors. I don't recommend Fiverr or like those similar, like, what is it, Upwork. And I know you can find good people there, and I'm not saying that they don't have good people. I have just seen way too many horror stories from authors who've used people they found through there. So I'm going to give you some good recommendations of where you can find editors. First one is Readsy. I'm sure we've all heard of Readsy. They have tons of resources for authors. They're amazing. They have a list of editors in there, so you just have to dig through it a little bit. The Editorial Freelancers Association, EFA, they have a database of editors. And then ACES, the Society for Editing, they're another editor association. I know Canada and UK have different, these are for US, but I know Canada and UK have different editorial associations. If someone knows what they are and wants to post them, that'd be great, because I'm not sure what they are. Just so ACES has another list of editors on there, but just be aware if you're looking at like EFA or ACES that the editors have to pay an annual fee to be there. So they might be a little bit on the high side for the pay scale. Local writers groups. So you can, a local writer, you're in the pro writing community, where ask, hey, I need an editor for my crime book on Prohibition era, whatever I'm doing. Who do you use? Give me a recommendation. Online writing groups, same deal, post in there, I need some help, right? So in-person, online. Recommendations from friends. This is my personal favorite because, oh, thank you. Someone just posted in there I think that's a Canadian one, editors.ca. So recommendations from friends is my favorite because 85% of my work has come from friend recommendations. And most of them that have recommended that they're friends to me are not writers themselves. They just know this is what I do. So my friend recommended her brother to me as, he hired me. And she's not a writer. So that's really important. So ask your friends, hey, do you have any friends who are editors? So the other one is to look at the acknowledgement section in books on your genre or the copyright page and see if the author included their editor. Most of my clients, I would say probably at least half, have edited by Elena Orison, and then my email or webpage on their copyright page. So that's another way to find editors. See who did it, and then reach out to them and just say, hey, I really like the work you did on this book, and I want to hire you, or I'm thinking about hiring you. So how do you hire an editor? This is why you're all here, right? How do we hire an editor? First, do not sign a contract with the first editor you meet. Don't do it. Interview a few editors so you can find your fit. Ask for a sample edit. And I'm going to say this a few more times. I've already said it a couple of times, but I'm going to say it a few more times. Ask for a sample edit, okay? It's important. Go with your gut. If you don't feel like it's a good match, move on. Hiring an editor isn't hiring someone to come and wash your windows. I mean, yes, we're doing a service for you, but we're also in partnership with you. So a good editor will decline your project if they aren't familiar with that type of writing. So I can't edit poetry or memoirs. I can't. Not even to save my life, I wouldn't be able to. I'd be dead. But I have a friend who's really good at poetry. So if I get a client that says, hey, I want you to edit my poetry book, I'm going to say, oh, I'm really sorry, I can't do it, but I'll send you to my friend who does poetry. And then if that's what happens to you, so if you are asking for a crime editor, I'm writing this crime thriller and someone's like, ooh, I only do memoirs, but they refer you to someone else, hang on to their information, because you might someday be in a writer's group where someone's looking for a memoir editor. Okay, and that's really helpful for all of us small people who are working from home on our own to get those referrals. Okay, questions to ask. This is in your handout. If you haven't already pulled it up yet, you do not have to write it all down unless that's just how you learn or remember things better. But I'm going to go through them a little bit in detail here. First question is, what is your training and experience? So did they go to school? Did they work at a publishing house? How did they get where they are now? What level of editing do you specialize in? Remember those developmental line editing and proofreading? Like, which one do they specialize in? Some are better at developmental editing than others. And so if you're looking for a line editor, but this person's not very good at that, you don't want them. Have you worked on books like mine before? This goes back to not hiring a romance editor for your crime novel. It's really important that they specialize. Someone who says they can edit everything doesn't have a focus and probably will not be able to help you write for your genre. Do you have testimonials and references? This is super important. Even someone just starting out will have at least one person who can recommend them. What is your communication preference? And also, how often do you communicate? So for me, I like email when I'm in the middle of a project, because then I can refer back to the emails while I'm working. A lot of times I'll have questions for the author, like, hey, what's the actual spelling of this person's name? It's spelled 3 different ways, that kind of a thing. And sometimes they don't get back to me right away, and I just want to be able to keep going and then refer back when I'm ready. What level of editing do you recommend for my book? So this goes back to that sample edit. See, sample edit. A good editor will ask to see your manuscript, or at least a sample, and they can kind of give you an idea. I will say developmental editing is harder if you're just giving them a sample. It's harder to see because it's a big picture overview, but you can definitely have that discussion with that person that you're looking to hire. What is your editing process? So this can be important for you as an author, because you want to know, first of all, it goes back to communication, when they're going to contact you after you send them your book. And then how do they work? So for line editing, I like to skim read most of the manuscript before getting started, just to get an overall feel. And then I'll edit chapter by chapter, and then I'll go through it again, and I'll go like smaller pieces. I'll focus on like the paragraph and sentence structure, and then I'll do it again. And I try and go through at least 3 times before I send it back. So find out what their process is, and everyone's different. What is your availability? Okay, this is important. This is important, you guys. Know your timeline and realize that editors can be booked for months out. All right, I booked, let's see, in June of last year, I was booked to the end of the year. And then by January of this year, I'm fully booked for the whole entire year with back-to-back projects. So it's really important to find out what their availability is and know your timeline. Like know when you're looking to publish. Ask to see their contract. If they don't have a contract, run the other direction. They should have a contract. Even if it's a simple one, they should have it. And we'll go over contract too, just so you guys know. We'll go over some contract things. Oh, sample edit. Here we go. I told you it's important. Many editors will charge a small fee, but it's worth it. And then this works best if you're looking for proofreading or line editing, not developmental, just as a reminder. Rates and payment options. What are your rates and payment options? Find that out. That's important. You have to know your budget. And independent editors set their own rates on a variety of factors, including genre and type of editing and their own experience. And the rates I've seen range from half a cent a word to 50 cents a word. That's a big range, 50 cents a word. And then also find out, how do you pay them? So that goes to the, what we say, I'm going to sell you my payment. I use PayPal or Venmo most of the time. I can also accept credit cards. So find out how you can pay them, and do they require a deposit? And if so, how much? This all goes into your budgeting. And then maybe one of the most important questions that you want to ask them, or actually this is asking yourself, is does the editor seem like someone you want to work with? So, and you are working with them. They're not working for you, even though you're paying them and you're hiring them. But when you hire an editor, you are hiring a temporary partner for your book. A good editor will see it as a partnership, and they'll want to make your writing the best it can be because it reflects also on them. There's also a lot of trust that happens, as we all know, when we're handing our book over to an editor. We're like, here you go, here's my book, baby, please don't hurt it. So make sure that you can talk to them, make sure it's someone you feel comfortable with and that, that you can trust, okay? And you might think of some other questions to ask while you're interviewing someone, or maybe as I'm talking, so just jot them down. But these are a starting point for you to interview an editor. Okay. Negotiations, here we go. Here's the nitty gritty. You've interviewed 3 editors and you picked one and you're super excited to work with them. You're just like, this is great. They're going to be awesome. Now what do you do? Okay. The next step I would say is negotiating your contract. And I want to say this really quick. This is my disclaimer. I'm not an attorney. I've never played one on TV. So this is all my own personal advice and experience. And please do talk to an attorney if you have any questions about contracts. So this is all of my own personal things, and I can't do any legal advice for anyone. Okay. Negotiations, when you get into this part, they're more about deadlines and payment plans. Well, the overall costs kind of remain fixed. So that goes back to what their rate is. And they say I'm charging half a cent a word or a cent a word or whatever it is they're doing. That's kind of what it is. But you can negotiate your deadlines, and you can normally talk about payment plans. So that's where it's really important for you to know your timeline and your publication date. If you're trying really hard to get it out by Christmas, and you contact an attorney, contact an editor the first week in December, they're probably going to say, no, sorry, I can't do it. Or sorry, I can't do it well, because it's not enough time. So make sure you know your timeline. So when you're talking to an editor, you can get a good idea. You can say, hey, I want to publish in September. What's your availability like? And experienced editors will also know how long it takes them to do the different types of edits on different length manuscripts. So I can kind of gauge if someone says, hey, I have an 80,000 word book, how long is it going to take you? I can kind of know about how long it's going to take me, and tell them this is when I can get it back to you by. Since I do have a busy family, I normally include a little buffer to allow for things like, unexpected events or illnesses that might put me behind schedule. So that just gives me a little bit of room in case something does happen. But usually the client's really happy because I get it back to them earlier than the deadline. So that works out for me. So again, know your timeline. If they say it takes 4 weeks, then plan accordingly. Ask what payment plans the editor offers. I'm really flexible. So I do require a deposit, but after that, I'll work with kind of whatever works for the author. I'm good. As long as I get paid, I don't care. Some editors might be more rigid. They might say, this is how we're doing it. And so find out what they prefer, go from there. You can always ask for different terms, like a smaller deposit or maybe a longer time to pay, because the worst that's going to happen is they'll say no. That's it. But if you don't ask them, then the answer is definitely no. So it doesn't hurt to ask, right? Okay, some things you probably can't change: cost and payment terms. So it goes back to that. But it's kind of complicated. So just talk to them. Like, we're people, we get it. And, my deposit's not unreasonable. So if you can pay the deposit and then make payments over 3 or 6 months or whatever it is, just be upfront and honest with the editor. And just don't accept payment terms that will be difficult for you to meet. Okay. So if you can only afford $100 a month, then don't agree to $200 a month, because it puts you in a really bad spot, and then there's also a potential lawsuit if you do fail to pay. So just be really careful and know this is just personal, but for your personal budget, just make sure you know what you can do. And then if the total the editor gives you seems out of reach, but you really want to work with that person, just ask if they can offer you a discount, or if they, or is there any other thing I can do? Can you help me here? Or maybe they can refer you to someone they know that's less expensive, but still just as good. So make sure you want to stress, how much you want to work with them. But then that total isn't doable for me. Just be like, I'm just sorry, I can't do that, but I really want to work with you, and we're not heartless. We're not, I promise. So we know that it's difficult to have that budget there, and we know that we're expensive. So it's a project we really want to work on, and we're really excited about. For me, I can say I'm more likely to offer a lower rate if I'm excited about your project too. Okay, contracts. This goes back to, I'm not an attorney. Okay. So make sure you consult an attorney prior to signing one if you are concerned at all, or if you have any questions. I can't answer any legal things for you. Things that I think should always be on the contract, always be on the contract. Details of the work to be edited. This includes title, working title, genre, word count, whatever it is that can identify the manuscript and make sure it's different from any other title out there. If it's, I don't know, Death Space, make sure it's not Death Space 2, whatever. Type of editing and what defines it. Are you getting the line edits? What does that mean? Make sure it's very specific here. What is the editor going to do for you? Have it listed out. Deadlines. You and your editor both want to know when the manuscript is due to the editor and when they're going to send it back to you. That's really important. Cost and payment terms. Was there a deposit? When is the remaining balance due? What's total cost? Have that all outlined 100% in that contract. I think you should have a termination and revision agreement. What happens if you change your mind and decide not to publish that book? Well, the editor's like midway through, or what if you suddenly can't afford to pay the editor because your family had an unexpected emergency? What if you're not ready to send your manuscript by the date you agreed? Like, what if that happened? It actually happened to me recently with one of my clients. It took a few emails back and forth to kind of figure it out, but we did, and we did a revision agreement because we had that worked into our contract. So make sure you have these things. These are important. Some I prefer to have in my contract, and these are in my contract, and I would recommend them, but it's totally up to you. Relationship definition. So that basically says, I'm not your employee and you are not my boss. You don't pay my taxes or my health insurance, and you can't dictate my hours of work. If I want to work at 2 a.m. because I can't sleep, then I'm going to work at 2 a.m. Work product ownership. This actually goes back to copyright protection. I own the edits until I send them to you, and then you own it all. And this is important for copyright because technically the things I change in your manuscript become my work product. So that's just, we want to make sure that's clear in there, who owns that work product. Confidentiality. I don't disclose who I'm editing for while I'm doing their work. I get their permission prior to posting. Once their book is published, or maybe after I'm done editing, I'll ask them, hey, can I put your book in my newsletter? That kind of a thing. I might tell their stories, because I've told a couple stories here, but you don't know who they are. So, that's confidential. Like, for me, that's important. I won't disclose anything about your book. I'm not going to tell someone, oh my gosh, I'm editing this book and it's just so awful, and it's by, Mary, and it's just terrible. I don't do that. That's not proper. It's not professional. And I would recommend that there is some kind of a confidentiality clause in your contract. Warranty, or a no guarantee clause. And this kind of protects me, the editor, from silly lawsuits by the author if their book doesn't hit the bestseller list. It's not my fault, okay? So that's just a little phrase in there that says, hey, I can't guarantee that your book is going to be amazing and you're going to make $1 million. The contract can be simple or in depth, but there needs to be one no matter what. So without a contract, you run the risk of not getting your manuscript edited, maybe having it stolen, or not getting it back in a timely manner. So how much time do I have, Libby? I'm sorry.
It's about 10 minutes left, but also
perfect.
We haven't got a session lined up. So if you want to go a tiny bit over, then that's all good too.
No, actually, I want to get to some questions if there are any. I'm really excited for that. Okay.
Oh,
so really quick. Some final thoughts. Research before you hire. Look at their website, their social media, do a Google search on them, ask for references. Know your budget. So that's, again, I've said it before, but it's really important. Just know your budget. If you can only afford $500, the editor wants $1,000, don't put yourself in a financial bind to pay that $1,000. In fact, I actually had a scenario like this earlier, and we did negotiate. I really wanted to work with her, so I negotiated to a mid-range that we kind of were both happy with. And then timeline, don't forget your timeline. It's so important, you guys. Just make sure that you are aware of when you want to have it published. So I already have a tentative schedule started for next year, and it's only April. So make sure that you have some room for reviewing the changes and making additional edits, and getting your book and your cover formatted, all of that. So you want some space in there after the edits are done. And that's it. that's all I've got. So I really hope this helps you. I hope that you feel empowered to hire your own editor, or if and when you are ready. The QR code, if you guys want to use that, it takes me to my link tree, or you can just visit my website, and all my socials are on there. And I really love people on my newsletter because I send out custom content on there. So if you want to join my newsletter, I'd love that. And that's it. So I'm ready for questions.
Wonderful. Yeah, we've got lots of questions.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah, we've got time. We're okay. We're going to get through quite a lot of these. And also, I just wanted to let you know that people throughout have been saying such excellent info. Thank you so much for sharing. You know, it's a great presentation. So they are, yeah, great presentation and talk, and you were awesome. So I'm going to get into the questions, but little boost for you there. So anonymous attendee asked, should I be hiring an editor if I want to publish traditionally?
See, that one's hard. You can, I would say almost yes, because it will help you get that agent. Having a clean manuscript is way better than having something that might be a little not quite there. And especially if you're looking for traditional publication. The only thing with that is that they will also probably go through it later and do some more revisions, but that's okay. That's okay. You want to get it as best as you can before you send it out.
Cool. Another anonymous attendee has asked, how can I figure out if an editor understands my voice enough to preserve it?
Okay. That's a tricky one. That's kind of a learned talent. I
suppose that that sample edit goes a long way to let you be then sample. I think then you'd probably see, well, that's wrong. That's not or not wrong, but you know, that doesn't sit right with me, and you would know at that stage. And then I suppose if you have an interview with them, you would also get a sense I don't know if you'd agree, if you click with your editor in an interview,
yes,
that's a good indicator as well.
Yes, exactly. So my one client she's a repeat offender client. I love her to death. We're friends, but we're friends now. I didn't even know her before, but she actually interviewed several editors before she chose me. And then she told me I was really great at preserving her voice. So that is something to look at, it goes back to the sample edit and then your interview. And if you're really concerned, maybe only give them part of your manuscript and maybe only pay for a partial edit, you know, like the first quarter or whatever, and see what happens from there. See if they send it back and you really like it, you can send them the rest.
Yeah. Carla has asked, when you do editing and you need to check for facts, do you charge by the hour then, since that may take a lot of work on your part, or does that change how anything works?
No, it's charged by the word or project. I never charge by the hour. I know some editors might, but I never do.
Cool. Somebody else, another anonymous attendee, has asked, do editors have preferred genres?
Yes, absolutely. And if they don't, then that's that. They're too general and they might not do a good job for your book. So I prefer, I'm doing fantasy and crime and historical fiction, so it's kind of like a weird mix, but those are my preferred, where I really like to be at.
Cool. Somebody's asked, is it wise to hire an all-in-one editor, so someone who at least claims to be able to do it all? So they see a lot of editors on social media advertising for like an all-in-one editing service.
You can. It depends on the editor and your genre and what they do. I don't know if I could do that for romance. Like if they wanted me to proofread romance, I'm fine. But if they want to do a developmental edit for romance, I'd be like, I don't think I can handle that. So it really depends on the editor and your genre.
Sure. Just having a look through these questions. What do you do if you're interested in writing books of different genres? Like, how do I solve this if I need to hire or contract only one editor that can focus on one genre? I suppose that's quite a similar question. So
you're looking at doing different genres? Is that
sounds like they want to write different genres, but would like to hire one editor. But I suppose with that answer to your previous question, it does depend on the genre.
It depends, yeah. And I don't think you can stick with just one editor if you're writing in different genres.
Mm-hmm. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, so a couple of people have asked, what sort of percentage is your deposit, and what is a typical deposit, and is it based on percentage?
Okay, so I can answer for me. I can't answer for anyone else, right? Because it depends on the person. For me, I normally require 25% down. And so it depends on, again, it's word count and word count or project based, or I guess that's it. I don't do hours. So word count or project based. And it is just a percentage. So whatever we decide that's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Somebody else has asked, would you recommend hiring a professional to help with a blurb or back of the book work? Would this be something a developmental editor could do after getting that kind of edit?
Yes and yes. And I've done those before too. So you can definitely, I would say definitely, yes. Hire, if you're worried about that, if that's a concern for you, then definitely make sure that you have someone looking that over.
Somebody has asked, if an editor makes a suggestion and you rewrite it, does the cost include them taking another look at that same part after you've rewritten it?
Oh, okay. So it depends on your editor, right? It depends on your contract. For me, I will look at it again. I will look at it again, included. Like I always recommend, here, read what I've done, and then get back to me, and then we'll go from there. And I will just, I'm kind of your editor on that book until you tell me that you're happy and you're done. So.
We've probably seen it in the chat, but Kim said, I hope I'm able to find an editor that is as honest as Elena about their abilities.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Loving your advice. Lucy asked, my book falls into multiple genres, a cozy mystery in a steampunk setting with fantasy elements. How could I be specific when describing my work to an editor? What's the best way to convey sort of disparities?
Kind of just like you did. Like, that sounds really intriguing. You know, and if you're talking, if the editor is a good one, let's go back to that. If the editor is a good one, they're going to tell you, I can't help you with this project. This is over my head. This isn't what I do. So, and the sample edit goes back to that.
Yeah. Somebody else has asked, if you're basing your story or stories in a different country from where you live, is it okay to hire an editor from somewhere else other than where you live? Or do you have to hire someone who lives in the same country that you live in?
Whatever is most comfortable for you. That's what I would say. I worked on books from this gal who lives in Canada. And so for me, it was interesting because the spelling is different on some words. And but I have some experience with that because I'm also helping with an anthology for Welsh goddesses. So kind of, I already know some of the different variations in spelling. So for me, it was okay, but you're going to have to really decide for yourself.
For potential editor interviews, does that mainly happen sort of over email, on the phone, or both?
I've done Facebook messaging chat, I've done email, I've done Zoom, I've done phone. It's really whatever for me.
Getting questions in, so I'm just going through these ones. There's quite a lot of questions, and I think the answer is probably going to be it depends. But quite a few questions on sort of how much would one expect to invest in a first-time edit for a new author. Sort of a range so that they can budget for the future, sort of thing.
Yeah, so I know EFA.org lists rate ranges based on genre and types of editing, and that you can kind of gauge from there if you're, you know, if your editor is in that range or not. That's difficult because it depends on what type of editing you're doing. It depends on your genre. So it's really hard, but if you can check EFA.org and they'll give you that range, and that might be helpful for you.
Perfect. Somebody has asked, they said it was Wyatt. So possibly dumb question. There are no dumb questions, first of all. If there are conflicts between, say you had hired a paid editor and then you have an editor at a publisher, if there are conflicts between your paid editor and a publisher's editor, who tends to win?
So if you are traditionally publishing, then it's going to be your publisher. So unfortunately, that's going to go back to your contract with them.
Carla has asked, I think in reference to the comment in the chat earlier, why not use an English teacher as your editor?
So I've heard that, and I don't understand it personally. So I've heard not using the English because they're really good at, I mean, look at, I'm sorry, how do you say her name?
Sana.
So she answered it right there. So it's true. They're good at grammar and spelling. So maybe for line edits, but they're not going to be good for developmental edits. They're not going to be good for flow as much. But if you're just looking for someone just to make sure your grammar is there, then go for it. So it depends, right? It goes back to it depends.
Just for actually everybody watching, Eileen has asked, is there a UK equivalent of ACE? So if anybody knows of a UK equivalent, pop that in the chat for me.
There is, and I can't think of it right now. I've seen it and I just can't remember.
I know there is as well, and now I'm thinking I can't remember. Let me just have a quick look. Just one more question.
I'm so sorry.
Somebody said, should you get your manuscript copyrighted before submitting it to an editor?
So I'm not an attorney, okay, but the way the US copyright law is written, and you're going to have to check, because I know we have some people from other countries. So the way the US copyright law is written, once you put that down, once you have preserved that, you wrote it on a piece of paper, you put it on your computer, that is now copyrighted. It's yours. So you don't have to get it copyrighted. It just protects you if something else happens.
And one last question, just because I think it does benefit you. Lots of people are asking, are you accepting new clients?
I am, but not till next year.
Yeah, so you're
I am 100% full this year. So it's but next year. So yeah, I am.
So if you're at those early stages and you're thinking, I'll need an edit next year. Yeah, Lucy said, perfect for me. Oh, Annie B said, I think it's the Society of Editors for the UK. So yeah, have a look over there to see if you can get more information too. Well, tons of people are saying thank you for the session, and that it's been one of the most valuable hours I've spent during this crime week. So really excellent and awesome presentation. Thank you so much, Elena, for packing so much information in and for coming in to speak to everyone. I think everyone is super grateful.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm so happy that everyone enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you so much for joining us, and we will be back for our final session of Crime Writers Week, which I can't believe we're there already, which is a demonstration of the ProWriting Aid software with me. So hope to see you back there. And yeah, thank you so much, Elena, and thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.